Did your browser open up when it
Yeah.
did that? Yeah, you can just close it. It's not necessary for that to be open. It just is letting you know. But I see the indication here that it's working.
All right.
Hi, Eric.
Aloha.
Okay, well, other people may join. I know Vic's trying to get on, but we can go ahead with art show so we don't miss that.
All right. It is Ba'et Hanan, and a little bit of some of the older art and something new that you might not have seen before.
Moses' farewell address to the Israelites continues in Va'et Hanan, and in it he revisits, restates, maybe even revises a bit the giving of the Luchot, the tablets inscribed with the Ten Commandments. This is how Dutch master Rembrandt portrayed Moshe about to smash the first set of tablets after the golden calf episode. His expression, a complex mix, anger and revelation, inviting us to empathize with his struggle, a powerful exploration of human emotion in the face of divine expectation. Though not Jewish himself, Rembrandt lived and worked in the Jewish sector of Amsterdam, and the carefully lettered Hebrew text on the tablets suggests he may have had guidance from his neighbors and friends. About the same time in France, this version is by Philippe de Champagne. Born in Brussels, he spent most of his artistic career in France, with many of his paintings decorating churches, including Notre Dame in Paris. In classic Baroque style, Champagne puts Moses in elegant 17th century finery, and the commandments are in French. Notice at the top of the squarish tablets, Écoute Israël, hear Israel, the beginning of the Shema, that is first declared in this parsha. Interestingly, Champagne did a second version of the painting. This one is at the Hermitage in Russia, while the other is in Paris. Similar, but take a closer look at Moses. Notice the projections coming from his forehead? Rays of light, but looking very much like animal ears, or, of course, horns, which appear to have been removed, or at least covered over, in the Hermitage version. This Va'et Hanan painting is by contemporary American-born Israeli artist Yoram Ranaan, who says he drew inspiration from the numerology. The Hebrew letters of the Parsha's name add up to 515, and a midrash says that's how many times Moses pleaded to be allowed to enter the land. The artist depicts those prayers with energetic brushstrokes that ascend upward from the figure of Moses, infused with a golden light. And the artist imagines Moses reappearing over his own head in a smaller, more subtle figure that seems to have ascended, as if his very being is projected onto a higher plane. The Shema does make its first appearance in the Parsha, and Israeli digital artist Orit Martin shows it as a shower of light from above, or perhaps from us to above. Drawing her inspiration from Kabbalah, the Zohar, Hasidic texts, and traditional Jewish motifs, Orit Martin explains her art expresses a deep desire to touch the untouchable, the abstract, spiritual world, in a visual way, created from a deep place inside to fill you with joy and light. Los Angeles-based graphic designer and poet Rick Lupert, whose work appealed from the Lupert verse in the Jewish Journal, gives us an image of that first word of the Shema, hear, and accompanies it with this poem. Listen, family, these words meant for your ears are the most important words. These words distinguish us even if we want to blend in. These words, if we heed them, get us the goods. These words don't come lightly. They are our marching orders. These words should be spoken of at breakfast, at lunch, in the living room, after dinner. We should always be speaking of these words, even on the treadmill. These words are meant for our youngest years, and it is our job to put them there. These words should be the first thing that leave your lips after the alarm clock, and the last thing before your soul leaves for the evening. There is a biology to these words. Check with your cardiologist. They'll confirm this. Strap these words to your hands and forehead. Don't worry about what it looks like. Just do it. And so everyone knows, Put them by your front door in a small decorative box, and if you're lucky enough to have gates, put them there too. The gift shop can help you with this. We're going to need all the help we can get. That's by Rick Lupert, author of 28 books, including God Wrestler, a poem for every Torah portion. Find more from him online at www.jewishpoetry.net, and that is our art for Va'et.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Alan. Are you leaving us? Okay, Alan is going to be leaving us.
The lights just went out. That's my cue.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for what you're doing there. It's very important. And love to everybody. Okay, we're on our own. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. And there are some latecomers that'll join us. For now, if we would like to say out loud the names for whom we are saying Misheberach, I know in our community there are plenty. Start with Joel, who's home now, no longer in the hospital, and Jan, and Sarah, who I don't see on the screen. Matan, go ahead.
Ray Wofford, Steve Winningham.
Anybody else want to say a Misheberach out loud?
I could use one.
Arnie Rabin,
Okay,
Misheberach.
honey.
And
My
Stuart,
sister Chaya, my cousins George and Mickey, and me for my eyes. Not urgent, but never hurts.
never hurts. And actually on Monday, next Monday, when we have our Judaism 101 on the issue of prayer, we will be talking a lot about this. So it's not too small for a Misheberach. Also, Stuart Leroff, who had to undergo surgery again this week.
The whole Freeberg family.
And my little niece who broke her arm, Lotem, or grandniece rather.
Mhm.
Okay. And many more. Many more. I think in our extended KBS group, we always say Misheberach for Marilyn. We always say Misheberach for Sarah. We always say Misheberach for Sherry and Alice and Mike Burnstone.
And Barry.
Can I ask you something? Because I'm not there in person with Misha Bear. I've noticed I haven't seen Barry around, and I know that his wife has had. Is there something going
No,
on? Did
they
anybody
were on
know?
vacation. They were on
Oh,
vacation. He's
okay.
They were
back.
in the mainland.
Yeah, he's back.
Okay, good.
Okay,
All right.
let's see how good I am at remembering how to share my screen. Oh no, it disappeared. Okay, you guys will have to bear with me for a minute. I'm such a dolt when it comes to this, but I know how to do it. I know how to do it. I know how to do it. Okay. Ta-da!
Yay.
Okay, Ruth Ellen, would you like to lead us?
Sure. Thank you. Misha
Connected to Amiga's iPad 2 and Pixel 10a.
Bracha Eloteinu, may the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu makor habracha liamotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit. And let us say, Amen.
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 Thank you. Okay, we can unmute and have a wonderful cacophony of blessing the study of Torah. Baruch atah
Atah Adonai
Adonai,
Eloheinu
Eloheinu
melech
melech
haolam
haolam
b'mitzvotav
asher kitshanu
la'asok
b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
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 Amen. There, I'm just going to stop share for a minute. This is such a huge, big parasha with so much good stuff that it's going to be really hard to keep the rhythm going. So every now and again, I'm just going to kind of stop us and move us forward. Ruth Ellen, what a lovely voice. Would you like to start reading?
Sure.
Okay. Hold on a minute. Okay.
And I pleaded with Adonai at that time, saying, O Lord Adonai, you who let your servant see the first works of your greatness and your mighty hand, you whose powerful deeds no God in heaven or on earth can equal. Let me, I pray, cross over and see the good lands on the other side of the Jordan, that good hill country, and the Lebanon. But Adonai was wrathful with me on your accounts and would not listen to me. Adonai said to me, enough, never speak to me of this matter again. Go up to the summit of Pisgah and gaze about to the west, the north, the south, and the east. Look at it well, for you shall not go across yonder Jordan. Give Joshua his instructions and imbue him with strength and courage. Excuse me. Excuse me.
I can
Across the
finish.
head of the people, and he shall allot to them the land that you may only see. Meanwhile, we stayed on in the valley near Beit Pur. But, you want to stop there?
Yeah, just because this is the actual naming of the parasha, Va'etchanan. So back to just a little housekeeping. We are in the book of Deuteronomy, Devarim, in the second chapter. The first three chapters are considered, the essence of the speeches that Moses is repeating. He's doing a great repetition from his viewpoint of what has happened in the desert on the cusp of crossing on over to the land of promise. So the first word, Va'etchanan is a very, very powerful word. It's not that Moses asked or he wanted the reconsideration. He was pleading. Moses was pleading to God. And as Alan mentioned, there is a midrash that takes the word Va'etchanan and looks at the gematria of it and comes up with the number 515 and says that is how many times Moses, he couldn't let it go. He tried again and he tried again. He tried 515 times to change the outcome that he would not be able to cross into the land. So it's seen as very significant. Moses is pleading. Moses doesn't plead very often. He gets frustrated. He shows his human side, but this pleading, it's almost like he's flattening himself in front of God and pleading. And what does God say? Enough. I'll have no more of this. Yeah, so pretty powerful. So I thought we'd just dwell on the beginning here for a minute. Oh, go ahead, Yehuda. Sorry, I'm looking at my book.
Sort of suggests that Moses is not really copying to his real role of being the representative in his relationship with God, because he's not trusting that God knows best. Here, he instead saying, I want what I want. And we have former conversations we've had about this really talk about the whole nature of maybe it becomes very obvious that Moses is not the man of that particular time in history, and that there's a tremendous protection taking place of God protecting Moses from having to go across the Jordan, and that he's not really up to that particular part of the journey to the promised land, and that God therefore is protecting him.
Matan, and then Arnie.
I find it interesting
that the author chose to put in the language. What God is there in the heavens and on earth who could do like your deeds and like your might? It's like he's almost trying to persuade the people that there's just one God. But and saying all these other gods are insignificant. They can't do like your God.
Yeah. And interesting, when we get to the first of the 10 utterances a little bit later in the parasha, remember what you said, because it's very significant in the wording of it and the pragmatism involved. So remember these words. Okay, Arnie, the other Arnie.
Yeah, so if I'm thinking straight, the reason he couldn't go across is because he hit the rock too hard, right? Was that the issue?
That's one explanation.
Okay, so you go, Grace of Mitzia, what's the big deal here? I mean, here's this guy who has served, as leader and fulfilled everything that God wanted, and he hits a rock too hard and then he doesn't get the reward. It just seems so unfair. And what's the lesson we're supposed to get from this? Make sure you follow the law exactly. If you deviate even a fraction, you're going to be sorry. Or I mean, I can't see any other moral lesson. That's what the Torah is supposed to teach us, right?
Well,
Well,
is there
I
a
don't think
lesson
so.
about
Go ahead, you, then Ruth Ellen.
is
Sorry.
there a lesson about even the expectation of having rewards for your actions? Are
Oh,
your
that's a good
actions,
point. That's a
you
good
know, are
point.
your actions just something that are, important in and of themselves?
I like that. Thank you.
Hey, Ruth Ellen?
Well, just in general, I think again, this is one of the prime example of the duality of life in general, and then the difference between the human and the divine. Moshe knows in his heart probably that it's not the most important thing, that he goes right over. But I keep thinking, at that age, all these studies that they're doing now, and now we, the baby boomers especially, who are living in an era where we're likely to have a life expectancy much greater than ever expected. You read all these studies, senior people don't give a darn anymore what other people think, or they're gonna say what's on their mind, or they have nothing to lose by giving it everything they've got to do something on their bucket list, you could say, like Moshe was trying to do. And also I think one of the lessons is that most hero Israel, right? But most of the important things are not physically attainable. And we've talked about this before. I mean, Moshe had what he needed, as we said, in his heart, and it's internal. And in a way, it was a gift to spare the grueling journey over there, to Yehuda's point about not wanting to drag your tush anymore. But is focusing on going to the physical promised land is kind of like focusing on the temporal and the non-lasting part of the covenant, which is how you relate to Hashem while you're on this earth, for what it's worth. Okay.
So I'm going to call on me. So you guys know I'm not of the school that believes that Moses is punished, even though in the wording of the parashat at Merivah, where he hits the rock twice with his stick out of frustration, I don't subscribe to that, because he is a human first and foremost, and he just lost his sister, and the people are whining and complaining again, and he hits the rock twice. So I give him that. But I think, because those of you who studied with us for a few years, I firmly believe that Moses is not being able to cross into the land of promise is because of the heartbreak he will encounter. And it's God's loving Moses, his loving act to Moses is to say, you can't go.
Yeah,
You can
it's a
gaze.
blessing for him. I agree.
It's a blessing. It's really like the final blessing for Moses. And by the way, a lot of people, when they encounter bad news like that and they don't get what they want, they kind of take their ball and go home. We know that phenomenon. And what exactly happens after this? Moses becomes the ultimate teacher. The rest of this parasha, he outlines exactly what is what it is, the all of it, the guidebook that they can't forget to take into the land of promise. And so he rises to the occasion. He doesn't sit and, nurse his wounds and say, woe is me. He becomes even more of a teacher than he was before. And so that's my personal view. And the more I study, the more I say, I don't see a reason not to. I wish more people wrote this. There is. I'm not unique in my attitude for sure, but the prevailing attitude toward Moses and the reason for him not crossing over still remains, that he disobeyed and he showed a vulnerability that was undecorous, so to speak. Okay, go ahead, Yehuda.
I love what you just said, and that, even though he brings this up, then it doesn't mean that he doesn't revert to there's still work to be done. And that's an amazing thing. I mean, Moses has got to be the most amazing character in the whole Bible. And, here is yet another example of how amazing that, it might just even be that these first few lines are just an aside. He's just still checking with God. Okay, please, you sure you haven't changed your mind now? But meanwhile, let's get back to the business at hand.
Yeah. Ruth Ellen?
I just had an epiphany that maybe it's a little bizarre or strange, but in the longer run, I keep thinking about human nature and the notion that if Moshe did take them to the other side after all this and all their complaining, he would become the hero and they would want to make him the king. This is foreshadowing what happens later, and I never really looked at it from that perspective. There again, it's because of human nature and how the children of Israel would view him perhaps as a demigod almost, if in fact he made it that far with them. Yeah,
You do
Yehuda?
not think for a second that George Washington didn't study this action and say, I don't want to be king. I'm resigning. Let me sit under my fig tree.
It's
Right.
interesting
That's where
because,
the humility comes in too. He didn't
you
have the
know,
desire.
Rabbi Sachs, that we all admire so much, he loved the idea of America. He loved the idea of the United States. He so much of his writing, you'd think, he was chief rabbi of the United States, the way he writes so lovingly. And there are many times where you listen to his writings, especially as we get to this book of we are in the book of Deuteronomy, where you can find the greatest speeches in American history and their origins in Deuteronomy. Unashamedly. I mean, not just our founding fathers, as we talked a few weeks ago during the Declaration of Independence, but in the greatest speeches, name a greatest speech in American history, and you will find Deuteronomy all over it. And that is Moses. I know, I fear for the people. I know what's going to happen. It's going to happen. And that's, we have later the prophets, and the idea of the prophecies and warnings, and that the prophets who say you're not getting it, you're doing the wrong thing. It's not the smell of the burnt offering that God wants. In the haftarah from last week, there's even wording that's like, the smell of your burnt offering makes me want to vomit. That is not what I'm asking of you. Have you covered a person who's cold lately? It's so clear. And Moses knows all of this. He sees people and he sees himself. He's a human. He's got these vulnerabilities. And so so now that subject, God says unequivocally, stop asking. I'll have no more of this. And now we can move on. So I do want to move on because we have a lot to cover. So that was the end of chapter 3. Let me see if I can find how to share again. Okay. Who would like to move us on?
I'll read.
All right.
Okay.
Can you see the screen?
I can see the screen.
Okay, go ahead.
And now, Israel, give heed to the laws and the rules that I am instructing you to observe, so that you may live to enter and occupy the land that Adonai, the God of your fathers, is giving you. You shall not add anything to what I command you, nor take anything away from it, but keep the commandments of your God, Adonai, that I enjoin upon you. You saw with your own eyes what Adonai did in the matter of Baal Peor, and that your God, Adonai, wiped out from among you every person who followed Baal Peor. While you who held fast to your God Adonai are still alive today. See, I have imparted to you laws and rules as my God Adonai has commanded me, for you are to abide by in the land that you are about to enter and occupy. Observe them faithfully, for that will be proof of your wisdom and discernment to other peoples who upon hearing all these laws will say, surely that great nation is as wise and a discerning people.
Oh, sorry.
For what great nation is there that has a God so close at hand as our God Adonai, whenever we call? Or what great nation has laws and rules as perfect as all his teachings that I set before you this day? But take utmost care and watch yourselves scrupulously, so that you do not forget the things that you saw with your own eyes, and so that they do not fade from your mind as long as you live, and make them known to your children and your children's children. The day you stood before your God Adonai at Horeb, when Adonai said to me, gather the people to me that I may let them hear my words, in order that they may learn to revere me, as long as they live on earth, and may so teach their children. And you came forward, and you stood at the foot of the mountain. The mountain was ablaze with flames to the very skies, and dark with densest clouds, spoke to you out of the fire. You heard the sound of words, but perceived no shape, nothing but a voice. God declared to you the covenant that you were commanded to observe, the 10 Commandments, inscribing them on 2 tablets of stone. At the same time, Adonai commanded me to impart to you laws and rules for you to observe in the land that you are about to cross into and occupy. For your own sake, therefore.
Sorry, I'd stop this. I wanted line 15 to be with the next reading.
Okay.
So anyhow, go ahead, Yuda.
I wanted to just remind people of the Hebrew is Chokim b'mishpatim, which is laws and rules. It commonly amongst Jewish scholars references that the Chokim, are specific things to God, man's relationship to God, whereas Mishpatim are things specifically between man.
Thank you. Yeah. So the last reading that we ended, was putting an end to the chapter, to the Moses' ask, and then it says, and now, O Israel, give heed to the laws and the rules, as Yuda said. And then the next reading is going to be, the next few readings are going to be very specific with laws and rules until we get to the Decalogue again. So
right.
there's a word that comes a lot in this. Oh, let me hear Craig first, because then I'm going to.
Oh, go ahead, Aviva.
No, it's just a word that I'm going to pick on and I want to point out, but it comes over and over in this parasha. I'd rather hear you.
Well, I'm struck by the words of God that there will be no further commands. It's sort of like our Constitution, where some people say, there it is, you can't change it, although there is a process for changing the Constitution, rarely used. But just intuitively, I mean, it's God, so he can foresee everything that's going to happen down the road, I suppose. But anything that you can't change at all is that's tough. And then the other concept that I'm seeing in here which almost feels like a Christian concept, is that God is close at hand and that we have our own personal God. It's like our own personal Jesus to walk around with us and make things fall in the plowed house in the big island of Hawaii. I don't know if that's the concept we should have, a personal relationship with God. I always thought it was a little more distant, but this seems, you know, as close as you can get. God is close at hand all the time with you individually. So those are interesting concepts.
Yes, I really like that, what you picked on, and especially as a lawyer, that line number 2, you shall not add anything to what I command you, nor take anything away from it, but keep the commandments of your God Adonai. And when we say the commandments in this translation, it does not mean the 10 commandments, because the 10 commandments are not really commandments. I mean, the first 4 of them or 5 of them are not really commandments, so to speak. They're not really laws, so to speak. They're so open-ended. But I think this is the ultimate rejoinder, reminder, and warning all at the same time, that these rules are so expansive that you do not need to add to them, and you do not need to take away from them, but you do need to spend your life interpreting them. And that's what makes a document for all time a document for all time. Our founding fathers in this country were limited by the time that they were living in and how they understood the world. If they were living today, I don't think that the Constitution would have the word men instead of humans. You know, they're a product of their time. But not adding anything, not taking anything away can so be misconstrued. It's frightening. But it's an expansiveness, not a closing down. It's a way of saying it's all here. The understanding emanates all out from there, but the rest is up to you.
Right, but the rigidity and the inflexibility that we can't change with the times. I know the rules of keeping kosher can be defined as God said so. You're not going to eat pork. And a lot of people say, well, that's because pork could kill you. It was undercooked. It's dangerous. But now with modern times, we can eliminate that danger. But no, we're not going to eat pork still. We don't change with the times, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. It just seems so inflexible
We do
and
change
rigid.
we do change with the times, and we have to change with the times because we are living in our time. We're not living in anybody else's time. And how it pertains to the laws of kashrut, that, one time we're just going to have an entire study session on that, because that is one of the most misunderstood things, that kashrut applied to its time. That is not one of the ones that applied to its time. It is a mindfulness thing for all time. And how it was written in that time is very specific. And it actually goes all the way back to Genesis with the separation and which animals are which, and they're designated. So it's a good discussion, but it does not ever encourage us to be closed in a specific time. Like, that's all there is. Don't look any farther. It's not that, even though it feels that way. So anyhow, I see that you have your hand up, and I thought I saw another one. Go ahead, Yehuda.
In some ways, I'm sort of jumping. We haven't come to the 10 Commandments yet, but you did make a statement that I want to address. Is that I think it's commonly understood that the first 5, the first of the stone tablets, are specifically chukim, laws, and the second 5 are rules. The first 5 specifically address things that God needs you to do. And the second 5 are things that you have to do because of the way people interact with each other.
Ruth Ellen?
Yeah, I just want to push back a little bit on Craig, because I feel Craig. Sorry. I think this is what happens in modern times when we're in the age of the diaspora and rabbinic Judaism. I don't think there's anything in Judaism that says that Hashem is not near and that it's not personal. The Deuteronomy, and thou shalt teach, it shall be in thy heart. It shall be in thy heart. And the Christian way of looking at things almost is like the way they've reinterpreted what the Mashiach will be, is that now you don't have to follow these laws because Jesus came and died for your sins. You don't have to worry about all these petty rules and laws anymore. That's not the kind of nearness, and we can also recall that it's the post Jesus's life period that reinterpreted what he said, which, if you look closely, said he came not to change the law, but to I forgot the exact word now. And that he came particularly to get
Fulfill it.
to fulfill it. Thank you. And that he came because he was upset with the money changers in the temple, not to convert the Gentiles. So that, again, the notion, and this is what my husband pointed out to me that I didn't even realize in modern times, because we strayed off that path and because we were afraid, we were even closer to Hashem because we heard his voice. They could see him, the cloud and all that. And it slowly got those perks taken away because people were afraid and didn't want the responsibility. And so they said to Moshe, it's too much for us. You act as the intermediary. There's not supposed to be an intermediary. And that's what comes in from the first 5. The idea of be thou holy as I am holy is saying, get out of your corporal confinement and look beyond to what's really important. Okay.
Thank you.
Even though it's hard to ignore, like you said.
Yehuda has his hand up. Go ahead.
Vis-a-vis, no, I'll defer.
Okay. You
Mainly
defer.
because I forgot what I was thinking.
That's what a pen is for.
It happens.
I don't have a pen here.
I wanted to bring up a word in Hebrew that is going to be very generously used from here on. And it is actually associated with the words we say at the end of the part of the service where we say the Shema. And that's the word lima'an. Lima'an, so that. What's another way to say it, Yehuda? What's another way to say lima'an?
So that's
okay. And where it comes in is after almost every sort of paragraph that tells us something specific to do, to follow very closely, it says lima'an, so that, and usually or often followed by, so that the days in the land that I have promised to you and your ancestors will be long.
Would you say it's causal?
Well, what's causal is you have to define it a bit more. There's definitely
then.
Right. So there's an if then, but the if is a lot, and it's not necessarily clearly understood. It is to be learned over a lifetime. But what's the second part? The if then. And the then is nothing less than assured destruction of the entire world, because the chosenness is not a gift specifically to the Israelites. The chosenness is, I have chosen you to have to live this way on behalf of, and that's very clear when we come to the first, to the Decalogue speaking about Shabbat, about the Sabbath, what it's for. But it becomes very clear. But the Lima'an pretty much says mutual destruction of all humans on the earth is assured if you don't. And then there's a lot of fill in the blanks.
Is that because, or could that be meaning that's what the result of our waywardness would be? It isn't because we didn't obey per se, but rather what the disobedience will rot. It's that that behavior will not support long life on the earth. It will support destruction.
Right. And so the word obey to me is very problematic. It's possible that because when I hear the word obey, I hear it in English and I cringe. The word is follow.
Okay.
The Hebrew word is much more appropriate as follow, because and you know,
That
again,
that works for me. I'm fine
Yeah.
with that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I get it.
right. And that takes it away. I mean, even if you go all the way back to looking at the story of the eating of the tree of knowledge of good and
Of
evil,
good and evil.
there is a real problem with how we, even as Jews, have accepted the translation and interpretation that makes us sinners. That's not how and I read it in our story at all. Like, what kind of world would it be if everybody just did good all the time? God would be yawning, basically. We are different from other creatures because of our ability to understand morality. And so without that, what are we? But that comes with a lot of work, and that work is not ever something you put aside and say, "Oh, I'm just kind of tired. I've been sitting all day. Let me put it aside and let my hair down and do whatever." Right? It's an always thing, and the why of it, the whatever for, is, well, you know what? There won't be a world for you to live in, because if you let one thing go, you let another thing go. Eventually, you cede your humanity to someone else to decide what's good and bad, which is destruction. With Ellen.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add to that in a way, this also brings in a notion of rationality and, legal reasoning to to what's being said here. It's not just the whims of a tyrant or an edict. It's so that there's justification for it, which also plays into the whole notion of what justice means. Justice shall thou pursue, because doing the quote unquote right thing is not is the thing that will let you survive, not just because I said so, right? Like
Craig?
it's the little kids.
Yes, I think I should push back on Ruth Ellen. Because of all
It's
the
nothing personal.
people who need some amendments to the Torah are women. Didn't Rabbi Eliezer say that women shouldn't even participate in Torah study? Now, maybe that's not straight from the Torah, it was his interpretation, but there are things like Deuteronomy 24:1, where only the man can initiate a divorce. And can that be changed? I think it has been, probably in modern Israel and certainly in America. Nobody would want that, right, Ruth Ellen? So doesn't that need to be changed? That only a man can
Right.
initiate a divorce?
The thing is, it all depends on what you start from. That's the thing for me. And as as the great grandchildren like you are of ultra Orthodox people who are no longer Orthodox, my whole point with anything in the Bible, until somebody can find, dig up the absolute tablets or the first writing down of this by eyewitnesses, all of this, we're seeing a translation of a translation of a translation, which is why it's all open to interpretation. And I think if one is pure of heart and mind when they study it, and that's why you continue to do it, all the injustices that you're pointing out, Craig, I think they would find ways to mitigate those. Even the wisest of the ortho. I keep thinking about that thing in Stissel where they, you go to the rabbi, and she the mother's health is more important than anything, and this woman said that she doesn't want to live because to her purpose is to procreate, and so the rabbi found a way halachically to say she could get pregnant again anyway. That's just one example, but again.
But here's the thing is that the word said it's unalterable, infallible, not subject to change. And I just think that's not the case. My heart and soul says, especially with Ruth Ellen, saying we don't even know who wrote this, and yet it's supposed to be infallible, and we have to follow its every word.
Well, obviously we're not doing that, so we are pushing back against that.
Correct, including women's rights, because we are all part of the modern world.
So great conversation. We're going to have a whole evening on that, maybe in October. Arnie, and then Yehuda. Go ahead.
So my belief is that Judaism has evolved over the centuries, just like everything else in history, and that we had different ways of dealing with the law. There was, there were judges, and then there was the Sanhedrin. There's the rabbinical period where much of the liturgy, how do you say that? At any rate, is written
Liturgy.
and everything. So it's an ever evolving religion. And on the positive side, in the way they treated women, is I always heard that a woman could get a get, which was the divorce, and it was allowed. And the simple fact that they were able to write a ketubah, probably the only culture and religion at the time that gave women the rights by creating the ketubah, the marriage contract, was a great advancement for women. Um, like everything else, we're evolving, and I think that looking at the ancients through our eyes is, we should hold our judgment, reserve our judgment, and if we want to compare, just look at it compared to the other cultures that were happening back then. And I'm really proud to say that, the Jews were advanced in their relationship with women and things during the times.
Thank you. Yehuda, and then Sarah.
Ruth Ellen mentioned if only someone was there to witness. Let's just remind ourselves that the bywords of Judaism are Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. And we know that there is a majuscule, the first and last letter of the Shema makes up the word Ed, which is the word for witness. So the witness is there up front, and it's up front in the bywords of Israel. And let me tell you, when the Muslims say Allahu Akbar, it's the same exact thing. The same exact thing. That there is a witness that watches all of this and takes it. And by the way, Aviva and I had a wonderful conversation this morning, which is the best thing about Torah study is the pre-Torah study when she and I have breakfast and we listen and talk. And one of the things we came up with this morning is when we say the Shema, Hear, O Israel, the Shema is not about God. It's never been about God. The Shema is about the word one. God has been a fraught word in greater society. So many wars and deaths have taken place around this word. We don't even know what God is. We have never known what God is. God is this feeling or whatever you want to call it. The one thing that we actually all do understand, even through science, is that one exists, because one is the interaction of every single thing in our environment. That is what one is. One is this table and the molecules and the forces of nature that operate. Everything is one. So maybe we're emphasizing the wrong word in the Shema. We should be emphasizing one, and we should be a witness to that. And every time there is a switch and a digression where you focus on something other than that everything is one, that's when we get into trouble. First thing I want to say. Second thing, I'm taking notes on things. Craig said something about the things that are subject to change. I think that there is a whole complete conversation about the nature of change within our thinking in both as Jews and in the greater world. And then the last thing Arnie said about the get and the ketubah. Arnie, even though the woman owns the ketubah, which is the contract which says the man owes her, blah, 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 blah. In Israel, even today, you can't get a divorce unless the man issues you a get, which releases you. And as much as we love to think that women have gotten extra special things within the Orthodox community and such things as the life cycle events in Israel, the religious courts hold sway. It is not a civil thing. So the get is, there's a pretty good movie that actually was up for an Oscar a few years ago about that. And the man refused to issue a get for his wife. He was a horrible person, but he refused to issue the get. And he held her under sway for that.
We haven't even gotten to the Shema, so let's hear Sarah,
Sorry.
and then maybe we'll do some reading.
What was the movie?
It was called The Get, I believe.
Oh,
okay.
Well,
Thank you.
I'm gonna add on to what Yehuda just said, because these laws are completely understood verbatim by the religious right, who holds, even though a minority, holds sway. And if created, for example, I just saw a documentary about the West Bank, which was shocking, about the land, and it's our land, and they could care less about anybody else who was there or is there or anything like that. And it's all based on Torah, on biblical study, on the idea that, and this really frustrates me, on the idea that God said to Abraham, as Yehuda pointed out, we don't even know what God is. Look at all this land before you. I'm giving this to you and your seed. Well, how many years ago was that? And can I go outside here and look at all the land along the Kohala coast and say, oh, God said, this is my land. But yet we have a group of people who hold sway, who still take these laws and what is said in the Torah verbatim. Absolutely verbatim. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say there might be a slight difference in that. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but genetically, there is the Hawaiians obviously are the people of this land after they migrated here. There was nobody here when they got here, according to historic events, and now this is.
Many Looney were here before them.
Okay, let her finish though.
But what I'm saying is they've been here for a long time, and now this is considered their land. And likewise, I mean, I'm not saying that there's no one else that we shared land with, but the fact that we were in the Middle East or in what is called Israel, and scientific, genetics, etc., bear that out.
Okay, I'm gonna finish now. There were always people in the Middle East. There were people there when Abraham came. There were people there when Joshua crossed the Jordan. There were people. There were always nomadic tribes. If you want to look at science, we came up out of Africa, so there were always people there. So these particular people who take Torah verbatim and the land is theirs do not want to share it with anybody. It's theirs, it's ours, and we don't care what happens to anybody else. And that is the mindset. As shocking as it is, that is the mindset. And that's the mindset of Gaza, that's the mindset of the West Bank, the Palestinian. Nobody cares about them.
Well, we're going to withhold.
All right. I'm not going to get. All right, that's not my point. My point isn't to get into a political discussion. My point is that there's just addressing what Craig said, and there is a group of people who hold sway, and that's why this is important. who hold sway and hold and are protected, who believe in this verbatim, and they're protected.
So they're not listening to the words that we will be reading soon. Okay, so let's let Arnie speak and then we're going to continue reading.
Yeah, in this parsha, it's mentioned, God tells them, look, I gave you this land and it's got all these houses and orchards already. It's all set for you, go in there. And, I don't think any of us would see this today as morally okay to go in there and take
Who is
someone
us? You mean
And
us
kill everybody
person?
off?
Us?
in this group right here.
Yeah, okay.
Us.
And I think that we need to put aside the direction that we're kind of, it's obvious. We cannot read the Torah without reading it in our time. And our time is a difficult time.
Well,
All
you
times are
didn't let me
difficult times.
finish.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Arnie.
I mean, so just to take it further, God promised Abraham all the land to the Euphrates. So, how far do you want to take this? Are we going to take over Iraq, Afghanistan, and Iran too and make it part of Israel? What's these guys' plan? It's just, they're Meshuggah, you know?
Let's hear Yehuda, Ruth Ellen, and then we're moving on to read some more.
Gets uncomfortable. The
I
discussion gets
remember-
uncomfortable.
I remembered what I had to say before. It's these lines are really directing us to one particular sense, our ears. And basically, everything was dark, but I still spoke to you. So now our sensory input tends to be 90% through our eyes, and the ears are secondary. But they're number 2 of our 5 senses, and there might be more senses than that even. So it's very interesting that the shift takes place where the only thing that we actually can pay attention to is what we're hearing. The eyes are taken out of it, and the interpretations, distractions, because the eyes have a unique thing in that their ability to focus near and far and anywhere in between and switch focus on a regular basis. The ears can do the same thing, but not quite the same. I can hear this bird calling from the basketball court now, but I'm listening to myself speak instead. So I think that our orientation from what we just read is shift to your ears. So much of what we hear and what we'll move forward studying, it has to do with listening.
As in, it's like there's a deeper or more, like there's a more profound, or there's something going on beyond what the topical senses will tell you. Like what your first take is when you hear something, you hear a bang, is it an earthquake? Did the next door neighbor fall? Like you have to figure out what's the meaning of what you're hearing. Whereas when you see something, what our prejudices, what we come to the table with, have to be dealt with no matter what. You always have to think about why you're perceiving it the way you are. Unless something just blew up in front of your face, and you got to grab somebody's hand because they're falling off the earth. Otherwise, you have to think what's going on, what's happening. It's not just my perception, but it's what actually is going on. No?
Ruth Ellen, go ahead. And I'd like to keep reading because we are
Yeah.
delving into the
I want to make this
territory of
foundational point because I think it's really important in our discussions because, and I will defer to the trained lawyer, Craig, because when you're making an argument, you're supposed to, I know as an economist, you have to lay the foundation of what your assumptions are or where your starting point is. And all these talks about to Sarah's point and all that the literalists are saying this was promised us. No, it wasn't unconditionally promised. People are focusing on the results they want, not on the whole picture, which said, if you follow the covenant, if you do these things, we're obviously not doing those things. Or we'd be at that on the cusp of the Mashiach coming. So we can't, so it isn't that simple. And we really get hung up because of the limitations of human communication between each other.
Well, some of it is hard to interpret, but as Arden pointed out, when it talks about greater Israel to the banks of the Euphrates, there doesn't seem to be a lot of ambiguity there.
Perhaps not, but if to the point that in modern times, the individuals over there are saying this was all ours and we don't care about anything else. Well, they're leaving the part of the Torah out that says if it's all because they're reading the Torah literally, taking care of the stranger. Remember the strangers, you were strangers. No, they're ignoring that and looking at, well,
Well,
we
so
were
you're
the last
saying if
ones
we're
to put
kind to the
fence here.
strangers, if we're kind to the strangers, then the Jews get all the land to the Euphrates?
Can we not oversimplify this? This is not material for oversimplification. The next chunk of about 30 lines, whoever's got good breath to read, is going to bring us to where we want to be to really discuss this, which is the Shema. I was going to skip over these next few lines, but I don't think we should. I think that they carry some of the things that people brought up here very succinctly, and I think we should not skip over them. So whoever has a good screen and is able to see all the words, go on and read from the last line on this screen. This one,
That
line
in and of
15.
itself, Viva, is revelation. You were going to
Okay.
skip it, and now you see we really shouldn't. You know,
Right. Yep. Okay. Someone start.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
God declared.
Oh no, from the
God
last,
declared.
Craig, the last line there, for your own sake.
Okay, for your own sake, therefore, be most careful, since you saw no shape when Adonai spoke to you at Horeb out of the fire. Not to act wickedly and make for yourselves a sculptured image in any likeness, whatever, the form of a man or a woman, the form of any beast on earth, the form of any winged bird that flies in the sky, the form of anything that creeps on the ground, the form of any fish that is in the waters below the earth. And when you look up to the sky and behold the sun and the moon and the stars, the whole heavenly host, you must not be lured into bowing down to them or serving them. These your God Adonai allotted to other peoples everywhere under heaven. But you, Adonai, took and brought out of Egypt that iron blast furnace to be God's very own people, as is now the case. Now Adonai was angry with me on your account and swore that I should not cross the Jordan and enter the good land that your God Adonai is assigning you as a heritage. For I must die in this land. I shall not cross the Jordan, but you will cross and take possession of that good land. Take care then not to your God Adonai concluded with you, and not to make for yourselves a sculptured image in any likeness against which your God Adonai has enjoined you. For your God Adonai is a consuming fire and a passion God. When you have begotten children and children's children and are long established in the land, should you act wickedly and make for yourselves a sculptured image in any likeness, causing your God Adonai displeasure and vexation, I call heaven and earth this day to witness against you that you shall soon perish from the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. You shall not long endure in it, but shall be utterly wiped out. Adonai will scatter you among the peoples, and only a scant few of you shall be left among the nations to which Adonai will drive you. There you will serve gods of wood and stone, made by human hands, that cannot see or hear or eat or smell. But if you search there, you will find your God Adonai, if only you seek with all your heart and soul. And when you are in distress because of all these things have befallen you, and in the end, return to and obey your God Adonai. For your God Adonai is a compassionate God who will not fail you nor let you perish. God will not forget the covenant made on oath with your fathers. You have but to inquire about bygone ages that came before you, ever since God created humankind on earth. From one end of heaven to the other, has anything as grand as this ever happened, or has its like ever been known? Has any people heard the voice of a God speaking out of a fire as you have and survived? Or has any deity ventured to go and take one nation from the midst of another by prodigious act, by signs and portents, by war, by a mighty hand and an outstretched arm and awesome power, as your God Adonai did for you in Egypt before your very eyes? You've been shown to know that Adonai alone is God. There is none else. From the heavens, God, let you hear the divine voice to discipline you. On earth, God, let you see the great divine fire, and from amidst that fire you heard God's words. And having loved your ancestors, God chose their heirs after them. God personally, in great divine might, led you out of Egypt to drive from your path nations greater and more populous than you, to take you into their land and assign it to you as a heritage, as is still the case. Know therefore this day and keep in mind that Adonai alone is God. In heaven above and on earth below, there is no other. Observe God's laws and commandments, which I enjoin upon you this day, that it may go well with you and your children after you, and that you may long remain in the land that your God Adonai is assigning to you for all time.
Is there a mathematical possibility that all the laws will always be adhered to? Because that's the only guarantee of the land. Even if we want to be that closed-minded and say, see, God promised it, it's got borders, it names these names, must be ours, everybody else gets to leave whether they want to or not. Is there even like a remote possibility that all the laws will be observed? I'm just throwing it out there, no need to answer. Okay, Arnie.
Yeah, so you're not supposed to have any other gods or idols, but we read about the snake god that Moses put up there to protect people from snake bite, and it was later carried to the first temple, and it was Hezekiah who told everyone to destroy it finally because people were worshiping it in the first temple. So it sounds like they weren't adhering to the rules for a long time.
Okay, that's an obscure one I didn't know about, but thank you.
We talked about it before, actually.
Yeah, I know, and I only heard about it from you.
Yeah.
So you enlighten me.
That's the first time I've read that passage. Didn't it switch between Moses' voice and God's voice? I didn't understand what was going on there.
All of the book of Deuteronomy is Moses' voice.
Written by Joshua.
Who was written by is a great conversation, but the voice, the first person voice is Moses. It's called the Great Retelling, the Mishneh Torah. Moses is telling his own words. He also changes a few things. I don't know, maybe he's making himself look a little better. Maybe he's like assigning blame to others, whatever. He's human. We are seeing Moses' humanity through the genius who decided to write this in Moses' voice.
He is human, but he was noted by God as humble. So it's unlikely that he would intentionally be.
I just have to point out something that hit me because this is the part of Deuteronomy that so much of it is in the Haggadah, right? And then that's broken down. And then we always talk about the fact that to point out that at least as young people, that Moshe is only mentioned once in the Haggadah because it's all God's doing. And now I'm realizing, well, if most of what the Haggadah quotes is in Moshe's voice, then, his name wouldn't be there. He'd be the narrator. That's another reason.
I think, Hatan, you have your hand up. It's hard to see in the background, but I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, you asked a while ago about, is it possible to keep all the laws? Well, that's kind of a slippery slope because, yeah, it's true we have these laws here, but they're not sufficient. And that's why we had to write the whole Talmud which is not also really full of different opinions about how to fulfill these laws. And that's such a difficult question to ask. Can all of them be kept? Because
I'm glad you brought up the Talmud because that's the most important thing. There is no point at which we have finished interpreting. That's the forever task. So thank you for pointing that out. That's the most important thing. The Talmud is not finished. I'm sorry I cut you off, Matan.
Oh, I was kind of finished. That was my point. That it's just very hard to tell if you've ever kept any of them
That's right.
at the end of the day.
Yep. Which will be obvious when we get to the actual words of the Shema, which in a few minutes. Go ahead, Yehuda. And then Marilyn.
There
Yehuda,
are
then
many gifts that the Jews have given to the world. And one of them is this continuous study where you're always investigating, finding anew around the words that are set from thousands of years ago. And the whole nature of continuous study in itself, as epitomized by the Talmud, means that there is never any set time where it all ends. You know, even the Torah itself, which led into the Tanakh, which led into the Mishnah, et cetera, once the Jews decided to start writing everything down, it's never stopped, and therefore constitutes a multi-thousand year compendium and plethora of wisdom literature. And that is an amazing thing. And that is a gift to the world. And it ends up being also the whole nature of the background of case law. You know, there wasn't case law before this. And case law holds today. I mean, we treasure law in this society. We say no one is above the law, even though some people think so.
Marilyn.
Yeah, I forgot what I was originally going to say, but what he just said made me think. I mean, I don't know I don't know lots of, other the laws or the great writings that took place, like let's say India, because that is a society that has a chunk of stuff that other places in the world regard as important. Don't they have some meaningful
Bhagavad Gita.
insights? Yeah, exactly what I was thinking. Isn't some of that important, or could be, I don't mean traded, but considered as valuable in terms of law and insight into. I do remember what I was going to say, that while we say it's impossible to care for, it may be impossible for all of this stuff, all of these laws to be followed. I won't use the word obeyed. Perhaps the intent, the sincere intent of humankind, or the people that were venturing to do this, if they were sincerely intending to do them correctly, and they had not yet perhaps done them correctly, I don't think that is invalidated for doing it. I think that Hashem would consider that as doing what he requested, because all you can do is to do your best and consider what you know, and to keep trying to get it right. So if you're doing that, and the whole community is doing that, that may take care of how could these all be done. Does that make sense?
To me. Thank you, Marilyn. Arnie.
So we got to remember that we weren't the first to come up with all these rules and laws. There's the laws of Hammurabi, there's the Vedic laws, much older, and we've adopted those and put them in our own story.
Adopted and adapted.
Exactly. And just like our mices and fables and stories and everything else, the flood story, it's all in all these other cultures, including the Hawaiian culture. Matter of fact, their dude was called Nua. Okay, that's pretty close to Noah. And yeah, it's amazing, all this basic cross-cultural stuff, and yet we've come out with a very long-lasting cultural basis for our existence that's lasted over 5,000 years. I have to say the same thing for the Indian culture too. The Vedas are older, and Their culture certainly has lasted a long time.
I mean, for the stuff that's universally true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sarah, go ahead.
Oh, I know in India and especially in Buddhist teachings, there's a saying, when you go and you have a guru or a teacher, you're learning Buddhism, take the teachings and run. Did you ever hear that?
I
Well,
haven't, but I like it.
yeah. So as far as you can see if they work without just blindly accepting multiple, dogmas. Yeah, take the teachings and run with them.
Run with them and run from perhaps from the person who would insist that their interpretation is the way, the only way, how
Yeah.
you do it.
Oh, I just realized that everything I've been putting in the comments has been going only to Yehuda. Yehuda just wrote, Judaism is concerned with awareness in and of this moment. The 613 are the details of our attempts at something
Be here now.
parent, be here now. I don't know.
It's kind of like, if I didn't go for my PhD, but had I was going to do my thesis on how the cell phone has interrupted the whole what had come before as the primary notion of being here now as the most important way to be here. And a cell phone takes you someplace else, and almost nobody is where they are. Everybody is somewhere else. It's crazy.
I had put something in the
can
chat.
explain, Aviva, if you didn't understand what I said. Basically, so many of the world's spiritualities are very concerned with being present right now. And Judaism's way of doing it is by having 613 things that you have to do that keep you present all the time. If you're going to follow these rules, 613 is a lot to follow. You've got to be conscious of all of them every single time you do anything.
And I had written in response to what Arnie was saying, because you were talking about other religions that came before, and I wrote that the difference is the covenant that is between all people and one God. All the people, not only the ones you think, all the people and the one God. Who else had their hand up? Okay, I'm back to my
Can I
screen.
respond to that, Aviva? We weren't the first monotheistic religion. You know that, right?
No, we weren't.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Who was?
Probably the Zoroastrians.
Right.
The one God, as in, well, as we talk about it, let's have this conversation again after we actually read the words, the Decalogue and the words of the Shema. And then all is open. After that, we might not cover the rest, but we can't leave the most significant words that are central to all our prayers and have been a thread in our existence. We can't leave them out. They're too beautiful. In that line, I will read the next 3 lines very quickly and just share my opinion of why they're here as a little segue. So did anyone want to add anything before we move on? Okay. The segue here. Moses set aside 3 cities on the east side of the Jordan to which a man who has killed someone could escape, one who unwittingly slew another without having been an enemy in the past. He could flee to one of these cities and live. Betzer, in the wilderness of the tableland, belonging to the Reubenites, Ramoth in Gilad, belonging to the Gadites, and Golan in Bashan, belonging to the Manassites, Menashe, I don't know how to say it. Okay, and then we are getting to this very significant reading. The reason I wanted to read that and just kind of leave it out, it's a segue, but it acknowledges a very important thing. Humans will do bad things. And if they did them inadvertently, they have a way to not perish because of them. That is a very important little segue. It gives us a breather. The concept of cities of refuge is very specific in Judaism and very important, and it is mentioned a number of times. This is one of them, and from my reading from commentaries, it is a segue. It is a reminder of what I said. Is there such a person who exists who has actually fulfilled and never strayed, who has always followed all of the commandments, of which some of them we don't even yet understand? That possibility doesn't exist. But what's that term we used last week? It is not for you to complete the task, but neither are you absolved from toiling in it. And that covers that subject. And that's why the cities of refuge acknowledge humans do. And unless they did something maliciously, they can find refuge. Go ahead, Arnie.
Well, I'm sure everyone knows about the Hawaiian cities of refuge also that were on all the islands. Very much the same structure and process that they went through. Of course, they didn't have Kohanim, they had Kahuna, which, by the way, is the school for Kohanim in Hebrew, is Kahuna. So it's all very interesting and connected. And one of my favorite places in the whole world is Pu'u Honua Ohonau now. So if you haven't been there, you've really missed on a spiritual journey. I mean, everyone who I've ever gone there has gotten chicken skin.
What's going on?
I think we lost our leader.
Yeah,
Viva
she answered the
left it.
door.
Well, she'll
Oh.
figure it out. They'll come back.
And we lost both Yehuda too.
Huh.
I would just, so we have this break here because Arnie mentioned that when we took our world cruise and I went to, New Zealand and and Australia, everything's, excuse me, exhibits about the history of the Polynesian people and where they think they came from, and that they started on the continent and Hawaii. They went to Hawaii and then turned around because they went where the currents took them. And I met a native in one of the Polynesian islands who said there's a theory that says that the Polynesian people started in central China, And so if you think about the Silk Road, you think about there is a unity and all these different cultural contexts are really saying the same thing. It's very possible that even the similarities you're pointing out with Hawaii and the Jews, that there's a historical connection going back,
Okay, we got a message from Aviva, which I could only read part of, that flashed on the screen. They're sorry the plumber came.
Yeah,
And
we
so-
have a plumbing emergency for those of you who don't know. And he came. I told him it's not an emergency, you can wait, but he feels responsible. So I sent you out to talk to him, but I might have to jump up one more time.
If any of you are interested in that whole story of the Hawaiians and their voyages, there's a lot of really good books, but King David Kawakawa wrote the history of the Hawaiian people, and he talks about these Semitic Kushite tribes that migrated across Asia and eventually got to Micronesia, and that's in their chants that they keep and repeat the story, and that's where he believes the connection was.
I've been in Dharamsala so many times, hanging around the Dalai Lama. But one time I journeyed to the very far north of India, up in the Ladakh region, past Ladakh and Leh, past Leh up to Hundar, which is remote. And the Ladakhi people, the Dalai Lama was making a visit, a rare visit. This was the first time I don't know, maybe it was his first time ever going there. And so I ran up there as fast as I could because I knew I knew the Ladakhi people would be coming out of remote regions with their native apparel, and it would be something culturally to see. When the Dalai Lama came out, and I've seen this before, but it never struck me before as much as it did this particular trip. They carried him out, like the elites would carry the king out, holding him up in a seat and carrying him out. And the whole entourage, all of a sudden, it looked to me like Hawaii because they wear the yellow and the red, just like the chiefs wore and the elite. The helmets are almost the same. They come up and around, and the capes. It knocked my socks off because I just so saw the connection between between Tibet and China and this region of Ladakh in very northern India, which is right below China. And I could just see the whole migration coming down through the Pacific to Hawaii just by watching this spectacle. It was just breathtaking. Anyway, I just wanted to share that really quickly.
Thanks for sharing that. That is really cool.
Yeah, it was really something. I have pictures somewhere. If I come across them one day, maybe I'll bring them to temple or something or share it. But yeah, amazing.
Is everyone okay if I push us forward at least to get through the Decalogue in one section, and then the next section will include the Shema?
Sure.
So whoever's can see the whole screen. Let's see.
I can
right
see
there.
it until the last line if you want.
Okay.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, go ahead, and whoever sees the whole screen, go ahead.
Okay. This is the teaching that Moses set before the Israelites. These are the decrees, laws, and rules that Moses addressed to the people of Israel after they had left Egypt. Beyond the Jordan, in the valley of Beth Peor, the land of King Silo of the Amorites, who dwelt in Hershon, whom Moses and the Israelites defeated after they had left Egypt. And they had taken possession of his country and that of King Og of Bashan, the two kings of the Amorites, which were on the east side of the Jordan, from Aroer, the banks of the Wadi Arnon, as far as Mount Sion, that is Hermon. Also the whole Arabah, in the east side of the Jordan, as far as the sea of Arabah, at the foot of the slopes of Pisgah. And Moses summoned all the Israelites and said to them, Shema Yisrael, the laws and the rules that I proclaim to you this day, study them and observe them faithfully. Our God made a covenant with us at Horeb. It was not with our ancestors God made this covenant, but with us, the living, every one of us who is here today. Face to face, God spoke to you on the mountain out of the fire. I stood between Adonai and you at the time to convey Adonai's words to you. For you were afraid of the fire. You did not go up to the mountain, saying, I, God, am your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods beside me. You shall not make for yourself a sculptured image, any likeness of what is in the heavens above, on the earth below, or in the waters below the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I am your God, Adonai, am an impassioned God, visiting the guilt of the parents upon the children, upon the third and upon the fourth generations of those who reject me, but showing kindness to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not swear false by the name of the God, Adonai, for Adonai will not clear one who swears falsely by God's name. Observe the Sabbath day and keep it holy as your God Adonai has commanded you. 6 days shall you labor and do your work, and on the seventh day is a Sabbath of your God Adonai. You shall not do any work, you, your son or your daughter, your male or your female slave, your ox or your ass, or any of the cattle, or any stranger in your settlement, so that your male and female slave may rest as you do. And remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and your God Adonai freed you from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, your God Adonai has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. Honor your father and your mother as your God Adonai has commanded you, that you may long endure, that you may fare well in the land that your God Adonai is assigning to you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. And you shall not covet your neighbor's wife. And none of you shall crave your neighbor's house or field or male or female slave or ox or ass or anything that is your neighbor's. Keep your hands off your neighbor's ass. You hear me? Spoke these words and those and no more to all your whole congregation in the mountain with a mighty voice out of the fire and the dense clouds. God inscribed them on 2 tablets of stone and gave them to me.
I stood up for all of us, because usually you
Okay.
stand when you read the.
As we read it too, we need to remember that bringing us out of Egypt, Egypt being the narrow place, the name of it matters as we read, because it's a concept. It's not just the name.
That's
So
cool.
I ask you, is it surprising that in the first commandment, so to speak, or utterance, or whatever you want to call it, is quite long, and there's discussion about where it begins and where it ends. But I'm interested. Let's see, where does it go? Oh, okay. Okay, it's in line 6. Let me Yod, I see your hand up, but I wanna pull up line 6 one more time here. Okay, there it is. This is a very interesting introduction of all the things. It says, I am your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. You would think that if we're going really truly all the way back to the beginning of our written story, it would say something like, I am the God who created the heaven and the earth. Something more to that effect of creation. And I wonder if anyone has any thoughts about that. I don't know if that's what you're going to talk about, Yehuda, but I wanted to dwell there for just a minute. So go ahead. You have your hand up.
I was going to talk about the thing that I talk about every single year about taking your name in vain.
Okay, go ahead.
I apologize to everybody if you've heard this from my mouth before, but this is the first and only of the commandments that specifically references speech. And we have known for a long time that there is an unwritten 11th commandment, thou shalt not gossip. And here it is in the 3rd commandment in reality, that watch your mouth. And the reason being that I have figured out through minimal thought is that when you take the name of God in vain, let's just go back and say that nobody actually knows what the name of God is. The name of God was only known by the highest of priests, said in the inner sanctum of the Second Temple, which was destroyed 2,000 years ago. So therefore, the name of God is not known. If the name of God is not known, that means anything could be God's name, like creme brulee. And every time you say anything that comes out of your mouth, you must sanctify your actions and words. So therefore, you're not, in effect, gossiping and using language inappropriately.
Wow. Was that a logical syllogism? I'm not sure.
You're not talking, Yehuda? He asked a question.
Is that a logical syllogism? I, I don't know. I'm trying to go from the words, what the words say, and what words are written between the words. Because we know when we study Torah, we study both the black letters and the spaces between. And the spaces between here in this case suggests this is the only commandment about speech. It's the only commandment about something we do not know at all. So if we don't know it, we have to assume. There's this concept, which I'm sure I've said in here before, of building a fence around the Torah. The concept being that since we don't, then the wise men created this concept. If we don't know what something exactly means in the Torah, we have to create this larger thing around it to make sure that we don't violate the things that Torah is telling us not to do. So in this particular case, this is an example of building this fence around the Torah.
Even though I've heard it before, I need the reminder that's because we really don't know what the Hashem's name is, then any word could be his name. But I also have to point out that not bearing false witness, I would argue, has something to do with speech as well.
It does.
Even though that
does, and plus that's written into our law, bearing false witness. I mean, if we thought for a second that what this Decalogue is not the creation of international law, this is it right here. It's an amazing thing. The Jews have given the world an amazing thing in this Decalogue. Amazing, amazing.
Eric, go ahead.
As we were reading through these again and listening to Yehuda, I'm thinking that all of these are about choices and thoughts. They're all meant to have people be reminded of what is holy and that their God is holy. So every one of them is about choices and thoughts before you speak, before you act, before you do something.
And what I wanted to add to this, thank you, Eric, this fits right into what I was going to say. So the book we're reading now is known as Deuteronomy, but it in the Hebrew is Devarim, which are words.
Words.
And the 10 commandments, I have a hard time saying commandments because they are not. They're 10 utterances or 10 speakings. Aseret, the 10 dibrot, from the same root word as davar, word. So it is all about words, and it is our words are how we express ourselves. And if we don't do that consciously, we can, it shows our lack of understanding. The words that come out of our mouth show either understanding or a shortage of understanding. And that is a very significant thing. That's why I have a hard time saying the 10 commandments, because they're not. Commandments are 613 actual, do this, do that. But the 10 commandments, especially the first one, which there's discussion about where it begins and ends, it is all about setting the place. Who's the covenant between? It's between, I am the God who brought you out of Egypt. All people, of all people in the world at one time or another, were lacking in liberty. And how we see the maps of the world defined right now are attempts to establish some form of emancipation where people have a place to self-actualize. That's really the definition of why have a country. It says, here we do these things. We draw borders around ourselves to protect ourselves in order to lima'an. What's the lima'an? What's the in order to? In order for us to flourish. That's a human concept. And the acknowledgement, even if there was a God, a single God before our story, Arnie, that it is not that the God is one component. It's the covenant between all people and a one God. So it's the covenant that's the link. Not praying to one God, but as we're told in the words of our prophets, especially Isaiah, it is not what God has asked you to do, to sit and put a sackcloth over you and starve yourselves. That is not. Have you offered bread to a hungry person? when you saw someone cold, did you put your own clothing over them? And we see the clear line of where where Christianity takes hold in the teachings that seem to be the action missing. And I'll say that in this Shabbat is also known as Shabbat Nachamu, Shabbat of comfort, and the famous words Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, comfort ye, my people. Who doesn't hear it in a specific voice? Like, we sing it in the Messiah. The Messiah starts with comfort ye, my people. The Messiah was written by Handel. His prophet to whom he's listening, he's writing these words, he's hearing them in a different way than Jews are, but they are the same words. They don't have a different meaning. It's just who spoke them. Again, Dvarim, who spoke the words. Go ahead, Arnie. I'm going to take my hand down.
Well, Rabbi Akiva said it all too, that's what you said is what he said, love thy neighbor as thyself and do all those good deeds. And that's the essence.
Actually, the completion of what he said. He said, love thy neighbor as thyself. All the rest is commentary. And what's the famous last word?
Now go study.
Tse ulemad. Now go study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I couldn't remember the whole thing.
I actually always prefer the golden rule in the negative. Do not do what is hateful unto others. I prefer that because I think that if you are a true believer in something, you can beat someone over the head with it, which is using the positive in the wrong way. But in the negative, there's no way to really use that in the wrong way.
True.
Hey guys, I got to sign off. Shabbat shalom to everybody. So appreciate you all in this discussion. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye,
I miss
Arnie.
you. Okay, I'm gonna, because it is already nigh on noon pretty soon, can I rush us to at least that we get the words of the Shema in?
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay, does anyone mind if we do that?
No, go for it.
Okay, so Marilyn, you're welcome to read and I'll complete the last lines that you can't. We'll do this together.
Okay.
I'll complete the last lines that you can't see because it's a little bit of a reading.
Okay. I don't.
Oh, hold on a sec. No, it's not there. Hold on. I got to get back to 19.
Yeah, I've tried to move the picture out of the bottom and I just can't.
No, that's okay.
Be able to minus the picture, Marilyn.
What?
A plus and a minus in the corners of the picture, and minus it and get rid of it completely.
Oh, okay. Okay, that worked. Thank you.
Okay, so go ahead right there.
And when you heard the voice out of the darkness, while the mountain was ablaze with fire, you came up to me, all your tribal heads and elders, and said, our God Adonai has just shown us a majestic presence, and we have heard God's voice out of the fire. We have seen this day that humankind may live though addressed by God. And let us not die then, for this fearsome fire will consume us. If we hear the voice of our God Adonai any longer, we shall die. For what mortal ever heard the voice of the living God speak out of the fire as we did and lived? You go closer and hear all that our God Adonai says, and then you tell us everything that our God Adonai tells you, and we will willingly do it. Adonai heard the plea that you made to me, and Adonai said to me, I have heard the plea that this people made to you. They did well to speak thus. May they always be of such mind to revere me and follow all my commandments, that it may go well with them and with their children forever. Go say to them, return to your tents, but you remain here with me, and I will give you the whole instruction, the laws and the rules that you shall impart to them for them to observe in the land that I am giving them to possess. And be careful then to do as your God Adonai has commanded you. Do not turn aside to the right or to the left. Follow only the path that your God Adonai has enjoined upon you, so that you may thrive and that it may go well with you, and that you may long endure in the land you are to possess. And this is the instruction, the laws and the rules that your God Adonai has commanded me to impart to you, to be observed in the land that you are about to cross into and occupy, so that you, your children, and your children's children may revere your God Adonai and follow, as long as you live, all the divine laws and commandments that I enjoin upon you, to the end that you may long endure. And obey, O Israel, willingly and faithfully, that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly in a land flowing with milk and honey, as Adonai, the God of your ancestors, spoke to you. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God alone. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And you shall love your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions which I charge you this day, and impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. And take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day, and inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And when your God Adonai brings you into the land that was sworn to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to be assigned to you, great and flourishing cities that you did not build, and houses full of all good things that you did not fill, hewn cisterns that you did not hew, vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant, and you eat your fill. Take heed that you do not forget Adonai, who freed you from the land of Egypt, the house of bondage.
It feels like a random place to stop, but I wanted to include a little bit more in there.
Okay.
Okay. So in Hebrew, when we say the Shema and then the Ve'ahavta, it says, Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, you shall love the Lord your God, B'chol levavcha, with all your heart, B'chol nafshecha, with all your soul, U'v'chol me'odecha. That is a word that's hard to translate. The best I can do is to say, with all your allness, with all your everythingness. It is a word that defies translation into English. It is so inclusive. It's your everything.
With all that you are.
Right. It's a big word. And then it's followed by, after that part of the Behavta, the reason I had to continue to read, it says, and then when Adonai your God brings you into the land that was sworn to your fathers, and this English translation says Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I don't like that. I like the translation that says to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to be assigned to you great and flourishing cities that you did not build, houses full of good things that you did not fill, hewn cisterns that you did not hew, vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant, and you eat your fill. And then take heed that you do not forget Adonai, who freed you from the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. The rhythm is what I wanted to bring out there. Go ahead, Yuda.
Things like by this, I've always been struck by this, that basically it's important for us to acknowledge these blessings which we've received, which don't come from our own hands, that there are blessings beyond our power to affect things, that they're just there and we have to recognize them. And recognize them, we have to. It's not a good thing to not recognize them, to assume for a second that everything is just, it's sort of, well, I'm not going to go political, but, I built this factory by myself. No, you didn't.
Right.
I know it really goes in conflict, because if we really think of all idealistic societies, of which our country definitely was built on ideals, we may argue now that they left up some really important things, and we may argue now that they came from a not so honest place. There's lots we can do by looking backwards, but I think at the time envisioning a land of promise, and that's why I use the term land of promise rather than promised land, because a land of promise is everybody's right. Right? The promised land, as we speak about it with capital letters, which don't exist in Hebrew, by the way, which leaves a lot more room to interpretation. The land of promise is a promise, kind of a cross. It's for all humans. And to remember that it is only bondage that keeps people from being self-actualized, whatever that bondage may be. But don't forget, you like this? Did you like this land you stepped into with cisterns already hewn for you, and olive oil already available to you? Want to keep it? Ruth,
Well, there's a certain humility, I think, that is intrinsic in it if you recognize it, that you've received a gift. That helps keep you in the space, the head space and heart space where we're supposed to be. I think.
You received a gift because you signed a covenant. It's an agreement. It's not just a gift. It is an agreement.
I was going to say, this brings us back full circle to Yehuda's point about, no, you didn't build that factory alone. The oneness. We make these distinctions in temporal time, and that we live in these three dimensions, and we get stuck there instead of seeing. And this goes with our whole conversation of where did these things come from and the different cultures. And even though the children of Israel were supposedly chosen, it also goes that they weren't chosen to be placed above. They were chosen to act as the sign upon the doorpost, to be a sign to the whole world, because the whole world was part of it, because humanity came from the same place, because the fact that all these different traditions in so many ways lead to the same place in a different language for each one is because of the evolution of humanity is beyond any one ethnic group or anything. It's all part of that one universe, that one bundle of energy that you could say the source of, we could call Hashem or whatever word, the name that's not speakable because it's everything, which while we're still using our minds, our brains, our bodies, and having to make these divisions, we having to live as the particles instead of the waves. It's the only way I can put it in terms of physics. We're constantly in motion and having to balance all of that. And when we don't live in the now, we fall off into getting stuck in our particular vessel and get selfish and afraid and worried and fearful of losing our bodies and death and all that, and we lose track of that unity. And that's, to me, is the whole thing in a nutshell. And that's in this parsha, the nutshell of the nutshell. Thank you.
Craig, go ahead.
Well, our world has a few problems now, don't we? And it seems to me that the passage that we read before, this last Shema passage, indicated that the one thing that makes Adonai mad above all else is taking a false god. And is that why the world's in so much trouble now? Because we remain a little people. Maybe Jews were planned to be a lot larger, but we know that a considerable number of our brethren went off to worship the Son of God, so to speak, in Jesus. Now, is that a false God? Then others said Muhammad is the true prophet of God, and they departed us that way. And maybe that's the problem. And then moving on to the Shema, which is interesting because Trish and I watched a movie with Helen Hunt last night called And Then She Arrived, with a lot of Jewish themes. And I was surprised that Helen Hunt's grandmother, her coach in acting, was a Jewish lady. I didn't know she had Jewish relatives, but toward the end of the movie, I don't want to give it away. She's in a tense situation and she wants to say a Jewish prayer. She's not the most knowledgeable Jew, and she says the Shema. And it occurred to me, is the Shema really a prayer? We say it every week in our services, or isn't it more of a declaration? Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. Okay? So is the Shema a prayer or a declaration? These are the things that are running through my mind right now.
I'm going to say yes and yes, and then hear what other people have to say.
Yes.
I put in the chat that movie. It's free on YouTube. You might want to watch it. Bette Midler plays Helen Hunt's mother.
Thank
So.
you.
Thank you.
What's the name of the movie again?
And Then She Arrived. Bette
And then
Midler plays a star who gave up a child, Helen Hunt, for adoption, and then comes back and finds her living in a Jewish home, adopted by Jewish people. Yeah.
Craig, that's why I
Sounds
mentioned my
good.
epiphany this morning about the whole nature of Shema. The focus shouldn't be on God. It should be on the word one, because God is a contaminated word, and it's really smart that the ultra-Orthodox never even use that word. It's just a word that's thrown around in English and in other languages as well. But if the emphasis is on the unitary understanding of how the universe works, maybe that's a better approach.
Right, but God wanted everybody to be saying that, the Shema, but it turns out just a tiny group of people, and we've lost so much population. And is that why the world's in such trouble? I mean, it's a cause and effect, because I don't know. Do Jews consider the following of Jesus to be the following of a false God? Or do we
It's
say,
more
well,
complex.
it's the same God? I don't know. It always feels, not Jewish. What do we need Jesus for? We've got God. What do we need a conduit for? And if you do need that conduit, is that something that pisses God off? I don't know.
These are questions you can ask. There is a lot of good reading. Actually, if you would like, there's a woman who does a lot of the writing about these subjects who happens to be a Jew, but her writings are very enlightening. I forget her name. I have trouble with names, but as soon as I remember, I'll put it in the chat. But I don't want to opine on that. I will say that in the tradition of when we finish the Torah, what do we start reading? We read the Nevi'im, the prophets, and then the writings. And in the prophets, you will find that in the Jewish tradition, Jesus fits into that chapter. Where things took a fork in the road tells you of how terrible a time in the time of written chronicles of humanity it was that prophets arise. Prophets arise in terrible times.
Yes,
They are
yes.
reluctant. They speak the words. They would rather not be there. They'd really rather not be there. And so in that spirit, and I think we should be careful not to say anything that could be, we
Offensive.
speak of,
Offensive.
right. This is a very trusting group, and even among the people who've been here for a very long time, there are people who have certain feelings, beliefs, belongings in their other times in their lives. So I think we should tread carefully. But the answer to your question, Craig, when you want an answer to a specific question like that, I'm going to just tell you, I'm sorry, that option is not available. The answers to the bigger questions never lie in the ends, in the extreme ends, in the yes or no's. And sometimes there is no answer. But the answer would never lie in the extreme ends. In a Jewish tradition, if you're looking at one end or another, try again because you've approached it wrong. That's the Jewish tradition.
But on another level, I think what Craig is saying holds, is a good question, because it's the differences in all these religions that cause so much problem. and contention between groups. So the oneness, would it bring us all maybe more together under one umbrella rather than having so many separations and different things between, I mean, I think it's a legitimate thing that he's saying there. Kind of deep, actually. I mean, it is deep because
And that's why even it
it
would
brings
surprise.
the
Oh, sorry.
idea of, no, just the idea of one brings humanity together under one creation. We're all part of the same creation. And I think that's what the Shema is. And so, you have Jesus, Muhammad, the Vedas, the this, the that. Everybody thinks they're right. But the one thing that can unite us all is the idea that we're all, whatever God is, it created everything and it's in everything. And that's a very uniting idea. So I like that.
Which is
Is
interesting
it
because,
uniting when he just says, "Hear, O Israel"? Isn't he just talking to us?
well, let's
Yeah.
not forget this is
Well,
Moses speaking.
And it
Okay.
doesn't mean that that isn't said to other people also. It just
and
means that's said
also,
to us.
and also when the story that the Torah was offered to everyone first. And so people, so like before Craig was talking about Zoroastrianism, actually it was Aten or something like that was the first monotheist from Egypt. He was a pharaoh in Egypt. That came before the Zoroastrians, but the Zoroastrians is the one that lasted. The one from Egypt didn't, that idea, even though that pharaoh started that idea, it didn't last. They went back to polytheism. So, but it's kind of interesting that different people in different areas had this idea of the oneness of everything.
And that's, I think that, it's interesting that it is the Hasidic movement who actually brought that concept that God is everything and in everything. And we think of that being such a progressive, innovative way to look at things, but yet we look at Hasidism as a very limiting way of practicing that puts limits on our lives and does not feel very open-minded or open-hearted or open anything. But I'd like that because Hebrew is so sparse in its actual words, the rest is meaning. And if you think of the term Adonai Echad, saying God is oneness. And yes, I know in the words of Moses it says Shema Israel, but the way that has become this sort of the central saying, I won't say prayer, but the central saying, people teach it to their children to say in the morning when they wake up, in the evening before they go to sleep. It's so central. We have example after example of martyrs saying that as they're willing to give their lives for their people, going out saying the Shema. It is much more significant than just words. And yes, it does say Shema Israel, but when we talk about, by the way, when Sinai is mentioned in the book of Deuteronomy, it is actually named Chorev. It's the same thing. Chorev and Sinai are the same mountain. It definitely, there is no end to who is included in that gathering. And there's also in the it's, I think, here considered the fourth commandment or the fourth utterance, the idea of the Sabbath not being limited to the Israelites. Very specifically, even in the first instance of the Decalogue in Parashat Yitro, but here it's even expanded. The Sabbath does not belong to the Israelites alone. It's spelled out in many different ways.
Where? I never heard that before.
Yeah, here, let me read it to you in I'm not Alan, it would take me too long to find it on the computer, so I will say here, I will read it here. Okay. It says, observe the Sabbath day and keep it holy as your God Adonai has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of your Adonai. You shall not do any work, you, your son, your daughter, your male or female slaves, your ox or your ass, or any of your cattle, or the stranger in your settlements, so that your male and female slave may rest as you do.
What about your plumber?
We don't know where he is. He came with a stethoscope, was listening to the pipes, and I haven't seen him.
He'll charge you for that. He's working.
Yes, but you know what, Craig? So did I as a
Oh,
nurse.
that's hysterical.
So did I as
know.
a nurse. And you know what?
So did I.
When we set up for services once a month, do you know I work physically harder than I do some other days of the week? And I do
Just
it
like
with,
a rabbi. Think how hard a rabbi works on Yom Kippur with no food.
yeah, but I mean, like, we're actually schlepping, right? You're
Right.
there. You have
Yes.
helped unschlepp at the end. So you know that. And yet, there's no way for me mistaking that it is Shabbat. Every cell in my body still knows it's Shabbat. As
Yeah.
I'm sweating, as I'm, tugging, as I'm doing whatever we're doing to set up for services, it's still Shabbat. Explain that one, if you will.
Well, it's
I don't know. I get the same feeling on Shabbat too, and I don't know what that. I don't know. It's if it's just infused in my mind, or if
you
it's
heard the word.
the actual day. I'm sorry. What, Marilyn?
I said you heard the word to keep it holy. Like your body and your mind have acquiesced. They're in that space.
Yeah, I guess. But I think what she's saying is that even though there's
Yeah,
something about the day itself that feels right. Like Sunday doesn't feel that way to me.
No, because that's not how you were. When you changed to Judaism, you gave that Sunday up if you ever followed it.
It never felt like that. That's what I was just gonna say. It never ever felt like that. But that's an interesting thing that you just said, Aviva. I don't know. There's something about. It's like the first time I went to Israel. I mean, I've been to so many places in the world, and yet when I put my foot down on the land, it was completely different than anywhere else I ever, was. And the sweetness of the air was different. It was just a feeling. I was still on the earth. Yeah, maybe it's just in my head. I don't know.
I feel like on the high holidays that you walk out of shul and nobody else is in the same headspace or heart
Yeah.
space as Jews, and there's something that is palpably different.
Yeah.
I can't pretend it's not there. It's totally there. Or
But
here.
the word palpable, see, that's the word that you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what makes it palpable? Is it just in our mind, or is there really something different about that day?
So do you think that the molecules in the air are different on
I
that day?
don't
or
know.
Are we a different person on that day?
Well,
We are different.
I felt like when I was in Israel, I felt like the molecules in the air were different.
Well, it's like when you land in Kona, after
you
you've
get
been
off the plane.
right? I mean, it's like you can't pretend that's not real.
Yeah, well, there's a saying, when you travel someplace, you get off the plane and you've arrived on your way, but when you get off the plane in Hawaii, you've arrived.
Okay. I agree.
For formality's sake, let's see, Ruth Ellen is putting something in there. Okay, Ruth Ellen's recommending watching Finding Your Roots segment on Helen Hunt. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'm writing all these things down to do later, my homework
Okay.
for the week.
Yeah, because when this goes away, I didn't write it all down, but I tried to copy one so I would at least be able to find it.
Okay. I would like to finish reading just to say we did. There's some more good words. I think there's more on the Shema that I would like to have discussions about, but I don't want to hear my own voice. And some people have dropped out. So, who wants to read?
I'll read.
All right. Well, I you'll have to wait because I just lost the. Hate when this happens. I don't know where it is. Here it is. Okay, now can I get back? Zoom.
Sorry, I was late today. I fell dead asleep.
We
You
were worried
probably
that you
needed it.
weren't well enough, so we're just glad you're here.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I sleep a lot, so I'm not real happy about how much I sleep, but I must need it.
Okay, let's see. We finished that. Okay, we finished it. So now we can actually read line 12 again because it was meant to be with the next reading. The last line there.
Take heed.
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Take heed that you do not forget Adonai who freed you from the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. Revere only your God Adonai and worship God alone and swear by God, only by God's name. Do not follow other gods, any gods of the peoples about you. For your God Adonai in your midst is an impassioned God, lest the anger of your God Adonai blaze forth against you, wiping you off the face of the earth. Do not try your God Adonai as you did at Massa. Be sure to keep the commandments, decrees, and laws that your God Adonai has enjoined upon you. Do what is right and good in the sight of Adonai, that it may go well with you, and that you may be able to possess the good land that your God Adonai promised and on oath to your fathers, and that all your enemies may be driven out before you, as Adonai has spoken. When in time to come your children ask you, what mean the decrees, laws, and rules that our God Adonai has enjoined upon you? You shall say to your children, we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and Adonai freed us from Egypt with a mighty hand. Wrought before your eyes marvelous and destructive signs and portents in Egypt against Pharaoh and all his household. And us God freed from there in order to take us and give us the land promised on oath to our fathers. And then Adonai commanded us to observe all these laws, to revere our God Adonai for our lasting good and for our survival, as is now the case. It will be, therefore, to our merit before God Adonai to observe faithfully this whole instruction as God has commanded us.
Actually, let's stop for just a second. I'll go back. Listen to this last line. It will be therefore to our merit before our God Adonai to observe faithfully this whole instruction. Kol mitzvah hazot, all this instruction that has commanded us. This is like, what does it even mean?
It means the paragraph before it. And then
Right.
Adonai commanded us to observe all these laws, revere our God and our lasting good for our survival. So I guess
Well,
if you're under the law, I mean, it goes back to that question, can you even observe all the laws? Well, first of all, we can't because there's no temple. But second of all, even when there was a temple, who did it? Whoever did it, Go
there's a
ahead.
very interesting discussion on whether physically Jews would have ever survived if the temple was not destroyed. Because the great dispersions that happened after the destructions of temples
Saved them.
are really, what the Israelites took with them is what we have left.
Yeah.
And I think that if all Israelites were physically around the place where the temple was, it's almost assured that technology would have come to a point of being able to destroy everybody there all at one in one fell swoop, which there are countries trying to do. But it's the dispersions and the tradition of rabbinic Judaism. It is the reason we're sitting here having this great discussion.
So that takes us back to the question of Zionism. in a
Well,
way.
it takes us also back to the question of if we don't have a temple to bring this particular unblemished something or this particular first of the grain
Right.
harvest or whatever, are those the things that kept us as a people? Because we're here, there's
Right,
no
right,
temple.
right, right, right.
So
Yeah.
it makes a very strong case to me when it says all these mitzvot after a rejoinder reminder that we found these things already available to us when we crossed into the promised land. We didn't
And
make
also,
them.
but also, why do we, I mean, why would we have Yom Kippur if we could keep all the laws? There would be no reason to have it.
And that's why I asked earlier, is it ever been a condition that unequivocally somebody has kept every single one of the laws? Because it's not really even possible in society. You have in other religions the idea of separating yourself completely away, whether for a period of time or forever, in order to fulfill whatever your understanding is. But
Well,
how does that?
Christianity is based on Jesus keeping and fulfilling the whole law. So a whole religion is based on that premise of that one person. So
Yes,
On
which is
behalf of the
interesting.
people.
yeah.
Well, as the atonement. So you don't, so ending the law that in that manner. So it's a very the two don't quite mesh.
Either you have your hand up or you're also muted.
Actually,
Oh,
Jesus didn't say that. Actually, it was Paul who started the whole problem. It wasn't Jesus who started the problem, or Yeshua. It was Paul started that whole idea.
Yehuda, go ahead.
Sarah, you asked, well, if you got it all right, what do we need about Yom Kippur? I think Judaism is it's a very timeline based approach to spirituality. And each one of these things in the timeline provides us an opportunity to look once again and in the present. Because if there's anything that we need to do, it's to stay. And, the spiritualities of the world are always concerned with staying in the present right now. And with the timeline in Judaism, we've got the present. Look, Aviv and I orient our whole week around Shabbat. We've always done that. Ever since we've been married, Shabbat is the thing. Well, who are we going to invite this week? Or maybe we're not going to invite anybody, but still, what are we going to make? What's going to make Shabbat really special? But then the other holidays are similar. That we want to sanctify our action by staying in the present, and we have all these tools to do it. There's a brilliance to how we do it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I didn't fast on Tish B'Av this year because, I have to take medicine and everything, but yet I planned, okay, I'm gonna just drink juice or take my meds. You know what I mean? It was sort of like my own fast as much as and it wasn't really that cognitive of an action. It was just something that I was gonna do. It was very, very interesting when I looked at it, and then, okay, I'll just have some when I finally can't fast anymore in the afternoon. I'll just have a small thing of chicken soup or something. I won't eat like a big meal or anything like
Yeah,
that.
it's the consciousness of what you're doing that, you're not giving into just the human desire to eat. Like you're eating. I do the same thing with regard to the medicines. And I consider and I feel like God considers it a fast. It's legitimate. You're doing what you can because you're not supposed to hurt yourself. That's not the intent.
To me, the intent means stay aware, stay aware, stay aware. And we have a set of tools that we do stay aware, and they're unique to us. I remember the one year I was in yeshiva. I remember Rabbi Dove walked into the class and said, what is different? What is the difference between us and any other religious approach? And his answer was the calendar. He said every single one of these has their own calendar, and their timeline is what they do with their approach. But I don't think that the search for present awareness varies much.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with you.
Go ahead, Ruth Ellen. Sorry, I'm muted.
Well, to answer Sarah's first question further, adding on to what Yehuda said, the structure of using the calendar, and it helps the human mind focus. But recall also that Yom Kippur is about our relationship of forgiveness and atonement with Hashem, not with other people. And you could argue that at least 608 of the 613 have to do with how we relate to each other. And in that relationship to the rest of Hashem's creations, we show our devotion to Hashem because we're honoring our humanity and how we treat others, number one. And then secondly, again, to Aviva's point, which we don't want to get political, but yet, how would we have survived if the temple had not been destroyed, if we had been in one place? And the role of having a specific physical place, is that the intention and the major function of what we're supposed to take from the Torah? Because we start about the internal, doing it in your heart, teaching it to your children. In there, it doesn't say any particular in your house, on your gates. It doesn't say where those house and gates are, right? That we get so hung up. We all the trouble may to a certain degree begin in terms of the wars and the constant redrawing of boundaries based on whoever has control of the narrative, that it has to go beyond that. And in this parsha, whether it's the voice of Moses or the writers who wrote it, it said, on one hand, we have this dichotomy. Hashem is saying, if you don't follow these commandments, it's going to be punishments onto your children. But yet, because of the covenant that he won't destroy everybody all again, it says the remnant will be dispersed throughout the world. That's what we're seeing? There's the prophecy right there. And so it is an interesting question of what does make us a Jew. And there again, it's back. Are you a Jew without Zionism? And of course, this is becoming a big issue in the modern world now.
Yeah.
You though, go ahead.
When you talk about putting it on the doorpost of your house, et cetera, I think there's a commonality in greater biology where animals have their own preserved space, which we refer to as home. And it's something very special. Home, it's and something that's so overly honored. It's not a house, it's a home. And there's something very special about everything that the home could be. And if people don't come from a good home, they still long to be in a good home because there is a greater concept of what that is in our society. And I think it's a concept that extends beyond us. That if someone is homeless, look at the words we're using. We're not saying houseless.
But we are now, actually.
And yet, even though there is a PC that says houseless.
Mhm.
You can think of all these aphorisms. Home is where the heart is, and all that kind of stuff. In other words, there it brings me back to my whole point about tying our meaning, our community, and everything to a particular physical place on this earth is ultimately limiting and causes a lot of stress and commotion because it's not going to last forever. And our consciousness, the way we recognize ourselves now in the homes that we make for ourselves, because everybody's got to be someplace if we're in a body, right? Then it's limiting. It's in the more vast universal infinite picture of everything, it's limiting. And if each individual can realize that, we would probably get along with each other a lot better and enjoy the time that we have here more. From my mouth to God's.
Yeah, right.
Okay, let's see. I think Matan had to leave because Steve wasn't feeling that well. I just want
Yeah.
to read the words of the Vahavta in English so that we can focus and see. They're so inclusive. Let's see what's left out of them. You shall love your God Adonai with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Take to heart these instructions which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. In other words, you can't just sit and think good thoughts. They have to show, everyone has to see that you and you and you and you are all following. That's the importance that here. This is the covenant. You agreed to this. You agreed to be the ones bearing this covenant. You have to wear it outwardly. It's not enough to sit in your home and think it. You teach it to your children, that's future oriented. You put it on the doorposts of your home, everyone who comes and goes. When you come and go, anybody else who comes and goes. You put it right there. When people are talking to you, they see this on your hands so that anytime you go to do something, those words are there and you see them as you go to do and act and create. So the inclusiveness of those couple of sentences of, I mean, what's left out? When you're lying awake, when you're waking or sleeping, when you're coming or going. So I love the poetry of the Hebrew, and I hope it translates into English.
I mean, it's not only the teaching of the Torah, but the deeper, by doing that, aren't we saying to our children, teach your children well how to be good? Like, even if you weren't teaching them Torah, if you're teaching them basic principles of Torah, because the world is such a corrupt place. Like, how do you redeem the world? By teaching your children what's right and what's wrong. You want them to be moral people on the face of the earth. I always tell my kids, you have eyes to see, you have ears to listen, use them.
There are 11 lines remaining in the parasha. I say let's read them and then we can go offline if we'd like. Has anyone not read? I think everyone has read. Yehuda, you haven't read. Okay, let me see if I can find it again. Yes. I'm sorry, 1 minute. There. I think you're muted.
Right. When your God, Adonai, brings you to the land that you are about to enter and possess, and dislodges many nations before you, the Hittites, the Girgasites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, seven larger than you. And your God Adonai delivers them to you and you defeat them. You must doom them to destruction, grant no terms, and give them no. And you shall not intermarry with them. Do not give your daughters to their sons, or take their daughters for your sons. For they will turn your children away from me to worship other gods. And Adonai's anger will blaze forth against you, promptly wiping you out. Instead, this is what you shall do to them. You shall tear down their altars, smash their pillars, cut down their sacred posts, and consign their images to the fire. For you are a people consecrated to your God Adonai. Of all the peoples on earth, your God Adonai chose you to be God's treasured people. it is not because you are the most numerous of peoples that Adonai grew attached to you and chose you. Indeed, you are the smallest of peoples. But it was because Adonai favored you and kept the oath made to your fathers that Adonai freed you with a mighty hand and rescued you from the house of bondage, from the power of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Know, therefore, that only your God, Adonai, is God, the steadfast God, who keeps the divine covenant faithfully to the thousandth generation of those who love God and keep the divine commandments, but who instantly requites with destruction those who reject, never slow with those who reject, but requiting them instantly, and therefore observe faithfully the instruction, the laws, and the rules with which I charge you today.
Whew. Mighty troubling to read. Go ahead, Marilyn.
Well, I just wanted to bring our attention back to line 1 and 2, because at the end of one of those sentences, Yehuda left out the phrase that mentions that these 7 nations are bigger than us. They were, and that was right at the beginning. Then in the end, he makes a small statement to remind us, but it's the fact that we survived, we thrived, even against these nations that were bigger than us because of the hand of the Almighty. I think it's important to note that.
What does that mean?
What does it mean? Well, it's there. If
I mean, is there somebody up there directing traffic by the hand of the Almighty? What does that mean?
well,
I'm
what
sorry,
I'm
did I
what in the scripture, what it's saying is that after these 7 nations are named, it also says that we were able to we were sustained and succeeded because even though these nations were larger than us and stronger than us, we were given the power to be able to to be sustained. And it wasn't by our own, it wasn't because we beat them because we were bigger. It was that we were given the extra whatever it was to do that, and it wasn't.
That's what I want to know. What's that extra whatever it was?
Well, I think it's saying that it's God, but then we're going to discuss what God means. And so maybe every person has a different sense of that. I don't know. I can only speak for myself.
That's the thing. See, we don't know what that ever extra
It doesn't
thing
trouble
is.
me that much though, because you either believe and have a relationship with God, or you don't, and in between those two you're seeking, I hope.
Well, that's the thing, Marilyn. The seeking part is actually why you keep questioning what is it. That's the seeking.
that's the most important thing is
that you keep up.
that we don't, as humans, have the ability to understand it all the time.
Right, I
Because
got it.
even if we come to a point where we say, I got it. See, it says, as people on extremes are doing to this day, they say, I got it. See, it says it right there.
Yeah, they
Take out
got
a
it
map.
right.
Let me show you on the map what it means. But what about the other part? That's why I asked that question earlier. Is it even possible to be that mindful all the time? Because there is no guarantee, there's no promise without the partnership, the covenant. And all of it, the reason the covenant, we in Hebrew, it's referred to in many different ways. HaTorah hazot, HaMitzvah hazot. There's so many ways that it includes that it talks about that one great document that includes everything. But do you know? If you don't even know what it says, can you live by it? And
go ahead.
That's where I see that's my answer to Craig. When Craig says, but we look at Israel and we say, my God, those people are no different than throughout the written history You do the things that God commands you to do, not what you would like it to mean. Because if
Right.
in the process of doing what you think God commanded you to do, you happen to hurt other people, you know what? You got it wrong. Then you have to, it's enjoined upon you to go figure it out what you've done wrong.
Right.
There's no way that the promise of the land includes making other people's lives miserable or killing others. It's simply not there. It doesn't say
Whoa,
that.
whoa, 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 whoa. I mean, isn't it all over those chapters of other people getting wiped out? Isn't it all? I mean, a lot of people got wiped out on God's command back then. Same,
And still are. By
yeah.
other God's command, by other people, God's commands every day.
Yeah, but so my thing is this really like some kind of survival because God is there for you? Or is it because you believe some God is there for you?
But they don't necessarily, they're
Oh,
not
Aviva
necessarily,
likes that. Aviva
yeah, but they're,
likes that.
yes, but they're not necessarily mutually exclusive either.
Well, they're different though. Because
Perhaps.
I think that sometimes, and I know from traveling, I learned very early on from traveling in dangerous places that what I believed would happen or the way I went into it and what I believed,
Right.
I think carried me through. Now, I thought at that time that, yeah, there was something out there, that, but now I question, is it something out there that's saying, if you believe in me, I'll save you? Or is it just my strong belief in and of itself? My
Yeah, but it's
head
what you
base.
believe in. If you believed in something awful and wicked, would you be saved by
No,
that? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. No, I think that, but
The fact that you're constantly looking,
because people can look in your eyes and tell if you're lying or you're
right?
telling the truth. And that can save you or do you in.
Yep, I agree.
And so is it me?
You have, if you believe it and you are not, coming from a place of evil, even if you're mistaken, you're not lying. That's different. Like if people look in your eyes and they see deceit, that is not the same thing as you being in error.
No, it isn't. I agree.
I'm going to take us off live stream because I'm afraid I'm going to forget later, and I'm afraid the plumber's going to come back and we're going to have to hang up. So I'll just take us off live stream now.
All right, goodbye, everybody.
No, we're not leaving. I'm
Not
just
you, I mean everybody online.